You're listening to Junie the Apostate. Can you keep a secret? Of course you can. You're just a book anyways. You usually keep to yourself. At least until somebody opens up your pages. And they finally get to know who you are. But until that happens, I'm afraid to tell anybody except for you. I want to be a girl. I am a girl. Inside, at least. I know I'm not supposed to feel this way. And perhaps it might be the enemy. Like what they tell me at church. But having these feelings doesn't feel so wrong at all. So I guess it has to be that God's telling me it's okay to feel this way. After all, God doesn't make mistakes, does he? But why am I so scared? I'm so confused right now. Yeah, that's what Mom and Dad would probably tell me. You're just confused. That, or what will everybody think about you? About us? Our family? Am I going to ruin this family? They can't be that cruel. Can they? I've heard the horror stories of people getting kicked out just by coming out. I don't want to end up like that either. Don't get me wrong. I want to tell everyone. I just don't know how they'll react. Would they even like me anymore? I have friends and family who usually make fun of people like me. I don't know who to trust to tell. It'll be amazing if my parents accept me for who I am inside. But I just don't want them to be taken away from me. What will I do? Hey everyone, Junie here. It's been roughly 6 months since I've came out to my parents as a non-conforming person to a specific gender, labeling myself as gender fluid, at least for the time being. With that said, it's been roughly 10 years since I've even thought of the idea of transitioning over completely. And at that point, I've only told only one person, who at the time I've considered her as one of my best friends and an ally to the LGBTQIA+ community. And up until this day, I've met many people who have falls under the trans umbrella. Some who I've acquainted with, and others I've made good friends with as well. And I'm sure many of them will be able to tell you that the hardest part of coming out as trans is telling the ones who are closest to you. Now, I didn't get much of a response from my parents when I told them that I will be identifying myself as gender fluid. But I'm sure it would have been much different had I appeared much more like the opposite of my assigned gender at birth. But just like the narrative from earlier, I feel much more comfortable talking to strangers about this than I do to the people that I am am close to. And there are days where I do feel that dysphoria with myself, and other days I am content. Sometimes I tell myself I wish I would have known about puberty blockers when I was younger, but I know my younger self wouldn't have done it because reasons. But having known what I do now, I most definitely would have given it a second thought at least, and pondered more on the idea. But unfortunately, we're facing with times that are making it much harder for young teens who are considering and transitioning. Let's take a look.
A record number of bills to limit transgender rights have been introduced this year in state legislatures across the country. John Yang reports on how the legal and cultural battles are playing out.
Judy, the Arkansas legislature has passed and sent to the governor a measure that would ban physicians from providing established gender-affirming medical care to transgender children. Also yesterday, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem signed executive orders banning transgender girls from playing on girls' sports teams. According to the Human Rights Campaign, an LGBTQ advocacy group, lawmakers in 28 states are considering 93 bills targeting the rights of transgender Americans. And sports bans in Arkansas and Mississippi are set to become law this summer.
God created us male and female. In his image, he created us. The Equality Act that we are to vote on this week destroys God's creation.
And so this bill would, in effect, repeal Title IX, which created an incredible revolution of girls' sports and women's sports in colleges and universities and in high schools and junior highs throughout this country. And it would repeal much of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. This bill is not a discrimination bill. The Democrats, when they're talking about this bill, want to frame it as a discrimination bill. They don't want to own the radical aspects of this bill. This bill is about mandating that biological males should be allowed to compete in girls' sports and women's sports, effectively repealing Title IX. This bill is about suing pastors and churches if they teach biblical teachings on sexuality and morality. This bill is about suing you, an individual citizen, if you dare speak and disagree with their mandated orthodoxy. This bill is about power, and this bill is dangerous.
Just for context, everybody, this is Ted Cruz here having a fit about the Equality Act. But I really have no idea where he was going off about pastors and churches being sued for teaching, quote, sexuality and morality. As if those two just come hand in hand. Right? And the first person was Marjorie Taylor Greene, the so-called Christian right-wing conspiracist, who tries to insert her so-called religious beliefs into politics, which definitely doesn't cross the line between church and state, right? And to her I say, if you really want to bring in Adam and Eve, let me remind you something. That apparently God created mankind in his own image, in the image of God. He created them. Male and female, he created them. Which sounds a little bit non-binary, depending on how you interpret it, really. But here are my thoughts on this. From what I understand, God made Adam in the image of things that are heavenly, which assumingly don't have a specific gender, let alone a sex. People can write that God is a he. But physically, can we see that it's a he? Does God even have a schwang to even prove that he's a he? Or does that not matter? Because he's God. But we're only given the following. God created a sentient rock man who is supposed to tend the land, be fruitful and multiply across the world. But alas, Adam could not find a suitable sex partner after trying out all the animals in the land. Because God just somehow forgot to do the same thing for mankind, just like the rest of the animal kingdom. So conveniently, for the sake of people's argument that women are below men, he creates a woman out of a rib. What a likely story. And if we're supposed to believe that this story is true, then people who are transgender cannot be blamed for feeling what they do. Because Adam and Eve were never made uniquely. And it's the same story that is used against the trans community, especially by some Christians out there. But luckily, we do have people that are Christian, or politicians that are on our side. But more importantly, parents. who understand. Take a listen to their stories.
I'm terrified because I'm the parent of a transgender child, and I'm afraid that by speaking here today, my words will be used against me should SB 1646 or SB 1311 pass, and my sweet son, whom I love more than life itself, will be taken from me. When my son was 4 years old, he asked me if scientists could turn him into a boy. I didn't understand then that he was trans. I only knew that he wasn't like most girls his age, and that something inside him was hurting. Like many of you, I thought he was asking for surgery, and I freaked out. But after doing research, I came to understand that gender affirmation surgery isn't done on minors, and that there is a whole array of medical options available for transgender youth, including hormone blockers, which are 100% reversible, are not new, and are clinically proven to save the lives of the trans children taking them. Today, my son is 13 years old, the most popular boy in the 7th grade, and loved by our friends, family, our church, and our community. This is possible because he has parents who affirm him and provide him the support he needs. But this committee and the bill's authors somehow deems my son's private medical care more important than COVID relief for women-owned small businesses, or making public schools safer, or fixing ERCOT. Honestly, these bills are a huge waste of time and tax.
Lifelong Missourian. I'm a business lawyer. I'm a Christian. I'm the son of a Methodist minister. I'm a husband. I'm the father of 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls, including a wonderful and beautiful transgender daughter. One thing I often hear when transgender issues are discussed is, I don't get it. I don't understand. And I would expect some of you to have said that and feel the same way. I didn't get it either. For years, I would not let my daughter wear girl clothes. I did not let her play with girl toys. I forced my daughter to wear boy clothes and get short haircuts, play on boys' sports teams. Why did I do this? To protect my child. I did not want my daughter or her siblings to get teased. And truth be told, I did it to protect myself as well. I wanted to avoid those inevitable questions as to why my child did not look and act like a boy. My child was miserable. I cannot overstate that. She was absolutely miserable, especially at school. I remember the day everything changed for me. I'd gotten home from work, and my daughter and her brother were in the front lawn. And my daughter had sneaked on one of her older sister's play dresses. And they wanted to go across the street and play with the neighbor's kids. It was time for dinner. I said, come in. She asked, can she go across the street? I said, no. She asked me if she went inside and put on boy clothes, could she then go across the street and play? And it's then that it hit me that my daughter was equating being good with being someone else. I was teaching her to deny who she is. As a parent, the one thing we cannot do, the one thing, is silence our child's spirit. I now have a confident, a smiling, a happy daughter. She plays on a girls' volleyball team. She has friendships. She's a kid.
Let's take a moment to applaud the parents, especially to those who are willing to stand up for their children. It's parents like you who mean so much to kids like these two.
It makes me sad that some politicians use trans kids like me to get votes from people who hate me just because I exist. God made me. God loves me for who I am, and God does not make mistakes.
But he always knew in his heart that he felt like a boy. So one day he got a haircut and threw out all of his dresses.
I want to say I felt confused because I finally felt true.
And even though underneath all that, his body stayed the same, Evan knows who he is.
I'm a boy. I know that. But I'm also a transgendered boy.
Transgender at age 12 and living in, you heard it, Texas, the staunchly conservative Old West. It's hardly a place known for taking a progressive approach in such circumstances, but Texas, like the rest of America, is transitioning.
And if only you actually would transition to a better place for everyone. And I think that rather than focus on what children will look like, I think what's more important is how they can impact their community and the world around them. But instead, we take steps backwards in making bills of hate. And if we're being honest, this really has nothing to do with sports, but rather based on fear of things that they don't understand. That's it for this one, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, be you and embrace in self-love.